He missed their old routines, their spontaneous dates. BJ, already pulling on her gym bag, shook her head, a genuine regret in her eyes. "Oh, honey, I can't. I'm going to the gym." She gave him a quick, apologetic smile. Brock's face fell, his shoulders slumping even further. The hopeful eagerness drained from him, replaced by a familiar disappointment. "Can't you skip it just this once? Come on, I'll take you to that romantic French place you like so much." He tried to entice her, appealing to their shared past, their favorite indulgences. BJ paused, a genuine struggle playing out on her face. The allure of French food, of a romantic lunch with her husband, was strong. But the pull of the gym, of Jordan, of her new routine, was stronger. Then, with a determined shake of her head, she said, "Really? Skip the gym and eat French food? No, confondu, bras." And with a quick peck on his cheek, she was gone, leaving Brock standing alone in the kitchen, the scent of her perfume and the lingering aroma of pizza the only reminders of her presence. Brock slumped onto a chair, defeated. He ran a hand through his hair, a sigh escaping his lips. "Man, she blew me off again. All she wants to do is go down to the gym and spend time with Jordan, her trainer." His voice was laced with a bitterness that was hard to ignore. "Exactly," Reba echoed, a hint of something she couldn't quite place in her voice, a mix of concern, suspicion, and a growing unease. Brock continued, his frustration boiling over, his insecurities rising to the surface. "Frankly, I like the new but the new attitude, not so much." He gestured vaguely in the direction BJ had left, his voice a low grumble. Reba snorted, unable to resist a jab. "Oh, that's really funny coming from the old butt." Brock ignored her, too consumed by his own worries. "Jordan's so great. Jordan's so toned and funny." He mimicked BJ's enthusiastic tone, a mocking bitterness creeping into his voice. "Well, I got news for you. Nobody's toned and funny." His jealousy was palpable, a green monster rearing its head. Reba tried to reason with him, to inject some common sense into his spiraling paranoia. "Bob, you're overreacting." "Oh, really?" Brock's eyes narrowed, a suspicious glint in their depths. "Yeah, I think she might be having an affair with this guy." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Reba scoffed, her initial reaction one of disbelief. "Barbara Jean with her trainer. I mean, sure, he's probably a better man than you are, better looking and younger." But she paused, searching for the right words, trying to dismiss the thought even as it began to take root in her own mind. Brock waited, his breath held, his eyes fixed on Reba's face. "But that's it." Reba shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought, to squash the growing unease. "No, Brock, Barbara Jean is loyal." Her words, however, lacked their usual conviction. The seed of doubt, planted earlier, was beginning to sprout. "Yeah, right, up until now. But now that she's thin and hot, she has all kinds of options." Brock's voice was laced with a deep-seated insecurity that Reba recognized. It wasn't just about BJ, it was about his own fear of inadequacy, a fear that had always simmered beneath his confident exterior, a fear of being replaced, of not being enough. Reba softened, seeing the genuine pain in his eyes. She knew that fear. She had seen it in many men, and sometimes, in herself. "Look, Brock, if it's worrying you that much, be honest with her. Tell her how you feel. Tell her that you just need a hug every now and then." It was a simple, honest solution, born of her own experience. Brock threw his hands up in exasperation, his frustration boiling over. "Oh, now, there's a great idea. See, why? Since my competition is a macho, muscular dude, I should go the other way and appear all weak and whiny. Your solutions are ridiculous, Reba." He stood up, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. He stormed out, leaving Reba alone with her thoughts. She looked at her smoothie, then at the half-eaten donut still on the counter. The image of Barbara Jean's radiant smile, the way Van and Ben had stared at her, and now, Brock's frantic jealousy. It all swirled together, a confusing cocktail of emotions. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, not necessarily with Barbara Jean, but with the entire dynamic of their household. The new pretty Barbara Jean was causing ripples, and Reba, despite her initial resistance, found herself drawn into the current, a reluctant detective in a domestic drama. The seed of doubt had fully blossomed into a thorny bush of suspicion. Chapter 3. The Spy Mission and the Stretching Truth. The next day, Reba found herself pacing the living room, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. Brock's desperate plea had resonated more than she cared to admit. It wasn't just about his insecurity. It was about the subtle shift she'd observed in Barbara Jean, a newfound confidence that, while admirable, also felt foreign. The thought of her best friend, her ex-husband's wife, potentially straying, gnawed at her. She prided herself on being a good judge of character, but people changed. And Barbara Jean had certainly changed, not just in appearance, but in her very aura. The easy laughter, the carefree indulgence, had been replaced by a focused determination, a quiet self-possession that Reba found both intriguing and unsettling. She stopped by the kitchen counter, eyeing a protein bar that had mysteriously appeared there, a new addition to the pantry's sparse landscape. "Takes me to spy on those stupid hard-to-believe they're supposed to be good for you," Reba muttered, picking up the bar and wrinkling her nose at its bland, cardboard-like texture. It was a symbol of this new, alien world Barbara Jean inhabited. Just then, Mrs. H, an elderly neighbor known for her boundless energy and even more boundless gossip, shuffled past the window, swinging her arms with an almost comical vigor, her silver hair bouncing with each step. She wore a bright pink tracksuit, a testament to her own commitment to power walking. "Hey, Mrs. H, you off for your power walk?" Reba called out, forcing a cheerful tone, trying to distract herself from her own internal turmoil. Mrs. H paused, beam in her face a network of cheerful wrinkles. "Man, I love old people, power walking, moving along, swinging their arms like there's a big sale for false teeth." She laughed, a cackling sound that echoed through the quiet street. Reba sighed, shaking her head, a weary resignation settling over her. "No, I'm not going for my power walk. This whole physical thing is getting everybody acting wacko." She gestured vaguely towards the house, encompassing the recent drama. Cheyenne, who had overheard, joined her, leaning against the doorframe, a thoughtful expression on her face. "What do you mean?" "Well, your dad thinks that the guy who gave Barb Jean her new body is wanting to take it for a spin." Reba's voice was tinged with a mixture of exasperation and genuine concern. Cheyenne's eyes widened, a knowing look passing over her face. "He probably does." Reba stared at her daughter, aghast. "What are you talking about?" "Guys are pigs, they're dogs. They're all animals. They just care about hot women. They're hot dogs." Cheyenne punctuated her statement with a dramatic flourish, her arms crossed, a defiant glint in her eyes. "My point is that when you got a hot lady, you got to keep your guard up at all times." It was a cynical worldview, perhaps born of her own youthful experiences and observations. Reba felt a pang, a sudden, uncomfortable realization. The words slipped out before she could stop them, a quiet admission of her own past vigilance, her own struggles in relationships. Cheyenne looked at her, confused. "You used to?" "No, baby, don't take it like that. It's just that I've grown into a mature, stable individual, that's all." Reba tried to sound convincing, to project an image of serene wisdom, but even to her own ears, it rang a little hollow. The truth was, she had become complacent, perhaps a little too comfortable in her own skin. Cheyenne, however, wasn't buying it. Her gaze was direct, unwavering. "Well, I don't like it." She stormed off, leaving Reba to ponder the implications. Had she become complacent? Had she, in her own stable maturity, lost some of her edge, her ability to see the world through the unfiltered lens of a woman who had to fight for everything? Had she, in her own comfort, grown a little dull? The thought was unsettling. Just then, Van walked in, munching on something that looked suspiciously like a leftover donut. "Where have you been?" Reba asked, a little too sharply, her nerves frayed. "I went to get something to eat." He looked at her, sensing her mood, his usual jovial expression replaced by a more cautious one. "So, Dan, you think that Brock might be right about this trainer?" Reba corrected him automatically, a weary sigh escaping her lips. "Van." She sighed again, running a hand through her hair. "Sure, this guy could be hot for Barb Jean, but since Barb Jean isn't looking to play, there's no problem." She was trying to convince herself as much as Van. "And it's obvious, Barb Jean isn't looking," Van stated, with a surprising air of certainty. "Why is this obvious?" Reba challenged, a flicker of hope that he might provide a definitive reason to